for all our women across Anguilla and the region and further afield who are celebrating International Women's Week this week. We also pray for the honorees who are being honored this week in their various fields of endeavor. We continue to seek your blessings on this island as we continue to go through the challenges of COVID, rebuilding the economy, and now we are having the uncertainties in Ukraine and the other territories. We ask that you continue to protect this island, protect our workers who are charged with the responsibility of keeping our borders safe. These issues we bring before your good name this afternoon. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Today, just want to acknowledge the media, and we have Dr. Joyce from the Anguillian. We have Lloyd Gums from Lloyd's Live, Mr. Elkin Richardson, independent journalist. We have Felicia Hennis from Radio Anguilla, Mr. Carl Pickering Sr. from KCN Channel 4. Of course, Dietz is here. We also have our liaison to the Spanish-speaking community. We have Ministerial Assistant Courtney Morton in the Ministry of Finance, my right-hand man who helps us to keep the country afloat and keep the country on track and the Treasury accountable. And we have from the Tourist Board members, and our Parliamentary Secretary is here. You're going to join us up here? Okay, she'll come after. We, of course, have, the starring woman for the last 2 years, our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Aisha Andrew, OBE, who has helped us to weather the COVID pandemic. And certainly we can be here like we are today because of the good work done by her team, including the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Mr. Mervyn Foster Rogers, OBE. So what we'll do is go straight to the COVID response update, vaccines, and the Ministry of Health report. Thank you.
All fun and joke aside, I will take every opportunity at the risk of being sung like a stock record. Our success really has been a testament to the country, the political directorate, and the people. Don't ever forget that. And it would be remiss of us not to keep saying that we couldn't do this by ourselves. It's a real effort for all of society and the population. There's no team that can function in a society or under a political directorate that does not cooperate with them. So we cannot emphasize that point enough. And we're going into the third year, and we have done so well because of you all as well. There's just no way around that, and we can't pretend that it was a heroic effort on one person. And certainly also the health authority colleagues, phenomenal work being done there with the laboratory, with the isolation unit. We've had dozens of persons admitted to that isolation with COVID symptoms. The majority have walked out of there alive, including those who have been on ventilator. And as I said recently in a radio interview on, was it Friday? When we first opened the isolation unit, we were saying, this is wonderful, hope we never use it. We all said it. We didn't even want to entertain having to deal with COVID patients, and here we are with mostly success stories, aside from the death rate low, but still tragic, because it's human life we're dealing with, right? So we're going to be brief this afternoon. No news is good news, they say, short and sweet, right? We have some good things to report, actually, on the global front. For the second week in a row, WHO is reporting decisive reductions in new cases and deaths around the world overall. So that the new cases have declined by 16% globally, and deaths have declined by 10% globally. So that the last week that they reported for, the 21st through the 27th of February, 10 million new cases were reported worldwide. We're used to seeing that in 20s, and 18 million and 21 million. So high, but still a reason to look forward to good things and to hope that we're through the worst of it. And over 60,000 new deaths. That has been a little stable for a while, but actually seeing a decrease in the number of deaths globally as well. So that's welcome news 2 weeks in a row. They have reported now that as of February 27th, globally we've confirmed 433 million cases and over 5.9 million deaths. For Anguilla now, as of March 1st, 6 a.m., we've confirmed 2,574, no, not March 1st, sorry, as of this morning. That was a previous update for EXCO. As of this morning, we've confirmed 2,574 cases of COVID, of which we've had 2,552 recoveries. Unfortunately, 9 persons have died. Currently, we have 13 active cases. So for ourselves, further to this, the Omicron surge that we had seen, we are really seeing a sustained low number of new cases, and that's very good news. We've seen consistently low or no hospitalizations. That's good news. So we're still at 3 hospitalized persons, all vaccinated, in our isolation unit. Like the rest of the world, our picture is dominated by Omicron. We got some more results from CARPHA, Caribbean Public Health Agency, the lab, on Wednesday evening, and the results for the last 7 samples were also Omicron. So since we've had Omicron in our midst, late December, 84% of our samples have been Omicron, and the last few all Omicron. And most of these, 64%, are from local cases. No secret that we have had sustained local and community transmission from about September onward to now, right? Good news that we finally got a little downgrade from the CDC. We were told about that. That was Friday, getting all these days mixed up. So we're going down to a level 3, and that will be reflected in the next update. I checked this afternoon, and they still hadn't changed it, but that's still good news, so congratulations once again. Any questions so far? Good. Right. Making it easy. Felicia is just back, and she's still fresh off her vacation. Yeah, so with regards to the vaccination, as of March 4th, we've had 10,528 first doses and 9,562 second doses administered. So based on our estimated population of 15,500 persons, which is also being used by WHO, as you would realize by now, this is about 68% of our population having received a first dose and 62% of the population having received 2 doses. Regards to Pfizer and our booster program, we've had about 955 first doses of Pfizer, 317 second doses, 2,419 booster doses. Incidentally, for that, we would have flagged up the fact that going further and further into this pandemic, as we move towards things going to our base level endemicity, as we call it, we're really starting to hear the call for booster doses, particularly among the vulnerable. We're looking at the elderly in the first instance, 50 and above. The UK is starting to hint at 75 and older, talking about boosters in 6 months, really, really elderly, older age groups, I shouldn't say that. Older age groups, right? But if we were to say, okay, as a quick and dirty estimate, if we look at the persons over 18 in Anguilla, the estimated population of around 9,700 and change, the 2,419 booster doses is about 25%. Up from the last couple of weeks, but still, and you'll hear us making that call for the most vulnerable around us, elderly age, those with chronic conditions. We're particularly seeing diabetes, even high blood pressure and other things. Obesity is emerging as an issue as well in kids, as well as adults, and so on. So that is the call. For the 12 to 17-year-olds, we're up to about 39% of that estimated population having had a first dose. And for the kids now, we just started that program the week of Valentine's. We've had 256 children, 5 to 11, having had a first dose of the Pfizer. That represents about 18% of that population. We estimate to be around 1,400 persons. Just to report, you remember last week we were saying we're going to the primary schools to really drive up those numbers. So that was between the 24th of February and 4th of March. We did 173 kids there for the first time. That represents 12% of that 18%. So having just started, that looks like that was really successful. That's a big chunk of what we're seeing. Hopefully that goes on successfully. With regards to what's coming up this week, we will still be offering pediatric doses, of course. This week is going to be on Wednesday, 9 to 12 at Welch's Polyclinic. Please call for an appointment at 497-4020. This will be posted on the Facebook webpage as well of the Ministry of Health. And for the adults, Pfizer first, second, and booster doses, we paused that briefly last week. We will resume on a walk-in basis at Welch's on Thursday from 9 to 12, and then again from 1:30 to 3:45 p.m. And then, additionally, we're doing adult Pfizer first, second doses and boosters at the Central and Western Polyclinics on Friday, 11th March, but those would be by appointment. So you have to call. So that would be between 1:30 p.m. and 3:45 p.m. The number at the Central Polyclinic is 497-2702, and for Western Polyclinic, it's 497-6421 or 476-6392. And finally, we have AstraZeneca second doses available at Welch's Polyclinic on Friday, the 11th of March from 1:30 to 3 p.m. So that's it for.
All right, are there any questions for the health team?
This is a general question that has been asked. We're talking about deaths still happening due to the virus. The new virus, Omicron, is that causing deaths still?
An excellent point, because one of the admonitions from the scientific community is that even though Omicron is seems to be a lot less severe than Delta, we're still having deaths worldwide. Incidentally, our number 8 or 9, was an Omicron with underlying issues, vaccinated. So it all is still, we have to reinforce the fact that unvaccinated persons with underlying issues will still be at risk. We're hoping to have variants that are less and less dangerous than Delta and previous variants. We're at an Omicron that's looking better, but we still have a high number of deaths and new cases than we would like to see globally. So that's a very good point. You're still seeing deaths, a lot fewer, but they're still occurring.
The other question is, what's the efficacy of natural immunity after catching the virus over the vaccine in children?
Question again, because remember there were some different research results that were showing, you saw half of them saying that the vaccine, the protection from natural immunity from infection was longer lasting and superior from the vaccines, and then midway we're told, no, it's the vaccines. I've seen recent data that's saying, again, there are some studies saying that the natural infection offers protection that's longer lasting once more. The difference is that you have to bear in mind, the question of natural infection means you're taking your chance with the virus. So we're still saying from a public health perspective, vaccination is the way to go, the responsible way to go. We're not going to tell people to go out and get infected in hopes of having, if you have to choose between taking a chance with the virus and maybe a booster dose here and there, as a public health professional, I'll tell you, take the vaccine. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a game of chance and so on. And of course, and if you're elderly and in a higher risk group with underlying conditions, you're really gambling with your life, literally. We're seeing a high number of deaths. Remember at the beginning, we're happy to say, oh, this is like the flu. We see this every year. And then later on, we saw very quickly that no, it has a higher death rate than the flu. So these are the things people have to answer for themselves. So data and the verdict is still out on that. You have results in both camps, but from a public health perspective, the safest way is absolutely vaccination.
And during, I know of vaccination.
The reason for that, when you get the virus in a natural state without being vaccinated, your body has to ramp up protections for at least 3 to 4 days before you start to fight that virus. So when you get that virus as a clean state, as a clean person who haven't had any infections or haven't had any immunization before, your body takes at least 3 to 4, sometimes 5 days to ramp up protections before it can begin to fight that virus. When you have the vaccine, you already have the T cells that have the memory. You already have the antibodies that have the memory. So as soon as the virus comes in, your body can begin to fight that virus rather than a lag of 3 to 4 days. And those 3 to 4 days are really, really important in trying to stave off that virus because of the impacts that virus can have on your systems, because the impact the virus can have on your lungs, and because the impact it can have on your oxygen saturation. And really and truly, if you have the vaccine, as you're always saying, it is easier to come out on the other end safer. And Dr. Aisha is correct. The risk of not having the vaccine is not worth it.
During, I know for the past couple of weeks and months, our vaccination status has been just a little under 70%. And I know we have been going by the population of 15,000. I'm just wondering, don't you think that that our population rate probably has reduced with the number of persons moving overseas and so forth, that our vaccination status could probably be much higher?
Point again, and remember we've said all the way we're using estimates, and every country is in this, not a predicament, it's normal. We do censuses every 10 years. What we have in between are estimates, right? And that's what we have been working with as well. So that's why we said we welcome the results of the census coming out, and kudos to the statistics department, for being able to pull that off under these circumstances. The whole Caribbean got delayed because of COVID-19. That's going to help us to tighten up the figures. So we're saying our default position is every vaccinatable person just get vaccinated is going to put us in the best position ever. It would be wonderful to find out, well, for selfish reasons, that denominator is lower. You know, it will certainly make our lives easier, but of course that's not the responsible thing to do. We will sit back and say, well, we hope it's a 14,000. No, that's why we keep saying this is an estimate, and people need to make that decision, and it's an individual decision to vaccinate, hopefully, or not. And the higher we get, and remember the figure at WHO puts is at a minimum as well. The more people you get over that, the more people you have protected is just better for the rest of us. But certainly, it's an estimate, and it could be either lower or higher than we're seeing. So that's certainly the case. Thank you.
If the figures are revised higher, will we see a restriction in travel sooner? And if so, what those restrictions removed would be?
Which figures are you talking about? Vaccination coverage? I think what is more important for us is the status or the state of the pandemic on island. Certainly, of course, the numbers, the coverage is important. Whether it's 60% or 80% or 50%, that's important, because that allows us to establish the risk of people coming in. But we also look at absolute numbers, and currently, as of now, we have 13 active cases. We don't have any major transmission in the community. There's no major transmission in the schools. In fact, those school children who are positive have gotten it at home, and there's no major issue of it being spread in the schools. We haven't found any problem of students giving it to other students, very, very minor. So we look at all the things in the consideration, and we think our risk right now is quite low. So we don't look at one metric, we look at all of them together and make a determination. However, if there's a major incidence where there's a major uptick, numbers begin to rise, there's spreading in the youths in the schools, a lot of hospitalizations, then we can look at things differently. But certainly as of now, we don't see any major reason to not change our policies we want to do in the next few weeks.
Unfortunately, we have to be the unfortunate messengers to bear a little bit through in the warnings or the caveats, as they say. Even amongst ourselves in public health, they're saying we can't rejoice prematurely. Things are looking pretty good. There's always a question of a new variant, so we have to put that out there. So just to reinforce some of what Mr. Rogers said, things are looking pretty good, but we still have to say, you know, and again, vaccinate. That will be our call for the next few months, because right now that's the only surety that we can see in terms of protection going forward. If this thing goes away and it really becomes an innocuous sniffle, and they say, you said in the health team they were harassing us for nothing, we'd be happiest if that were the case, but we just don't know. So this is the only responsible thing that we can tell you. It's looking good, but we're by no means out completely off the pandemic or the threat, unfortunately.
One of the things you look at is a burden on the health services. That's an important metric we look at. If there's a situation where the isolation ward is full of COVID positive patients and they're spilling over to the ordinary ward, and there's a major transmission pattern in Angola that we can't identify where it's coming from, of course then we have to step back and with EXCO make some difficult and tough decisions. But until that time, you know, we find we are managing quite well. I think we did the hard stuff early on. We took the difficult decisions early on, and now we're reaping the benefits of that. So we want to thank those persons who have gotten vaccinated, almost 11,000 of the population, and that's not a small feat. And no matter what you hear out there, that itself has lent a large amount of protections to the people of Angola.
Good afternoon. There's a question online about the 9-page data that was released by Pfizer, and why isn't anyone speaking about it?
The data is periodically reviewed all the time, and when we make determinations, they talk about peer review and then recommendations coming from that. So, to be frank, it hasn't really been discussed in our main technical group as yet. It could be, I'm not sure, is that the one about efficacy among 5 to 11-year-olds? Because there's always that debate around risk-benefit ratios, and clearly, even from early on, we were saying with the elderly and the most infirm, you could see that clear distinction. Even with the UK, they took longer to implement a universal vaccination among 5 to 11-year-olds because that was that question mark. Traditionally, that has been the group that is least affected. So even when you talk about increased hospitalizations and deaths among kids for whatever strain in whatever country, it was always relative to the older population and those who are ill, still looking at that as a lower risk category. Some of the questions that have come in terms of determining, and you would see that the UK JCVI eventually did endorse universal vaccination. I mean, all 5 to 11-year-olds, basically, looking at the ones at highest risk as a priority, was that they were saying because of the question marks about variants to come, because of the question marks about the disruption to school and transmission, and remember these kids are in households and they may make other people ill as well, they determined that the benefits of vaccination still outweigh the risks. And also you'll see on the CDC website that is still what they are saying. So there are several studies coming out all the time, and they're peer-reviewed, and then it comes to the point where we discuss them and talk about what is a hard, enough evidence for a recommendation. So you will see that repeatedly. And if you look hard enough, there are hundreds out there actually, so.
Follow-up question, when will Anguillians with a negative test that are unvaccinated be allowed to leave and return without quarantine?
We don't know just yet. We're still discussing that. We take stuff by step. There's a step-by-step approach to all of our policies and all our recommendations, all our protocols. Certainly, to be honest with you, that will be the last step we'll take. The steps we take before then are to ensure that the risk of the community of transmission is lowered. And at that point, when we do that, we probably can make a determination that the virus is endemic. We probably can make a determination that at this point in time, there's nothing else we could do. But certainly, we are looking at that, but that will become at a last stage. We are not in a position to discuss when that will happen right now.
Thank you. Any other questions for the health team? If not, I'll allow them to leave, and thank for your service. And stay safe. Have a great day and a good week. Thanks. I'll ask yes, come. Yes. So we'll welcome the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and the staff from the Anguilla Tourist Board, and we will let you lead from here.
So good afternoon all. Today I have with us our Chief Marketing Officer, Mr. Georgios, and then we also have Chantel, who's also in our marketing department. These two have been at our road shows over the past year, representing Anguilla. We've done a lot of work in the HEB to kind of look at the partners that we have globally, ensure that we have value for money, and to do a lot to center Anguilla in the conversation while travel was still limited. So much of the focus really was to ensure that Anguilla was top of mind, so once people get back on the road and in the air primarily, that Anguilla would be one of their preferred destinations. Sorry about that. And this month, We recognize the largest, or the highest accommodation tax in the history of Anguilla. And so we really look at that as a significant marker for the level of work that we've done. We've also recognized just over $1 million in revenue for our work from US dollars in revenue from our work from home visa, which was also championed by the ATB marketing team to get persons to be aware of what the work from home package in Anguilla would be like. So we have some things to celebrate, and while we're not out of the woods yet, we are doing our best to ensure that Anguilla is top of mind. So before I hand over, I just want to talk about it's on my phone, so that's why I'm clicking in, some of the things that we've done last year. So we, when I say we, I just mean where Anguilla has been represented through the ATB. So we have been at about 6 roadshows last year. 8 roadshows. We've hosted 2 celebrity media influencers. We hosted 7 journalists. We were on Travel and Leisure's top 25 islands. We would have been named one of the 10 best countries on Lonely Planet's best places to travel in 2022. Camp de Luca Belmont was included in the Condé Nast Travel Best Hotels and Resorts in the world's list. Anguilla is among the top booked wedding destinations globally, and we also had some other of our local properties, such as Frangipane, also being placed in some of the world's best. We've had media engagement that, for business to business, reached about 4,000 professionals, and business to consumer reached over 1,000 customers. So we've done a lot in terms of engagement, in terms of getting Anguilla centered, in the conversation. And I just wanted to have the marketing team speak about where we're at and some of the directions that we're going to as a country, and just give the general public and take them along at what is going on behind closed doors and how we are trying to center our tourism product and make it even better. We know that even in this year, we had Elvis Beach Bar and Sunshine Shack being listed as one of the best in the region as well. So we know that Anguilla is top of mind. We have increased airlift. We have more hotels engaging with the ATB as well on the island. So these are very good developments. And I just wanted to just have a brief conversation about what that means for us. So I'll hand it over.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this great introduction, also for looking backward actually for the review. My name is Georgios Tsodakidis. I know I have a very difficult last name to pronounce, but please feel free to try it. Thank you very much again. Chantal Richardson here with me, the coordinator for international markets. And as mentioned, we're going to give you a brief update on what is happening at the ATB and what kind of projects and programs we are currently running. First of all, one more time, thank you for the opportunity. Very grateful to be here to represent the Anguilla Tourist Board on behalf, or to be here on behalf of the Anguilla Tourist Board and represent the organization. Yeah, perfect segue. I think what is important is one more time to remind everyone and to remind the public what our mission is ultimately. Our mission is to inspire travel to Anguilla. We've been seeing a huge demand recently, which was also underlined by the different awards that we've won or by the different wins that we've achieved lately, which is of course always great to see when it's being built back on our work ongoing. We are here also to deliver an update on the strategy moving forward. Last week we had the opportunity to present the strategy to the Ministry of Tourism and also to the tourism industry stakeholders here on island. It was widely accepted and approved. We are having different conversations with some of the stakeholders to adjust and to also discuss different ideas that have developed out of the strategy presentation. Just to remind everyone also one more time that our strategic pillars, especially in our department, are built towards international marketing. So marketing is the tactic that we use to achieve our goals. And what are our goals? If we look at the strategic pillars that we set as goals for 2022, 2023 moving forward, we want to, of course, maximize the leisure travel market. We have great opportunities with American Airlines, so we want to see them successful as well. So we have invested into a partnership with American Airlines to get those flights full. Anguilla became so much closer to the US than it was ever before. We have this one-stop shop actually even for travelers coming from Europe, so this is a great opportunity for us. We have engaged with different travel brands on global partnership, be it OTAs, online travel agencies, such as Expedia, but also different publishing houses that we haven't had the opportunity yet to work with. So this is one part of our work, the maximization of the leisure travel market. Furthermore, we're pushing the group business, and when we're talking about groups, we're looking, of course, into the incentive travel, for example. We're looking also into the multi-generational families who are coming. This is one of the trends coming out of COVID that has developed globally as well. But also into special and niche programs such as destination weddings, such as romance activities, and especially with being voted as one of the highest volume bookings for Q4 2021 moving forward in terms of destination weddings. This is also a great playground for us to be part of. Another strategic pillar is to inspire international travel as a whole, and this goes actually beyond our brand. This goes beyond our purpose, actually. This is a purpose-filled activity that we're doing, given the fierce competition that we have worldwide. We want to be, of course, on top of everyone's minds, communicating the position of safety, the position of security, and of course the position that Anguilla is open for business and that our stakeholders and of course the community should benefit from that. Another important strategic pillar is, of course, to open the island and the destination to new audiences. And when we talk about new audiences, it's not only about a new demographic, a younger demographic as well, but also to different interests, right? We have, as mentioned already, we have opportunities here with the romance pillar that we're marketing, but also with that soft adventure pillar. We've noticed, of course, and seen in trend reports that people are looking actually to lose the crowd, right? People are looking to set themselves off of what the mainstream is doing for the time being, especially now coming out of COVID, and as we see that there's waves of countries opening up and the citizens are allowed to travel. We shouldn't forget, though, again, that we have fierce competition on the horizon. The cities are opening up very quickly, of course, as well. People are looking into entertainment, culture, etc., which they can find in different destinations, such as Anguilla as well, but we need to be out there. And speaking of out there, we are looking into also engaging with new audiences, especially in our bread and butter market, the US, and we have put a sales and outreach calendar out there that is going to support us with that. And I would like also to call my colleague Chantel on stage to tell us a little bit about that outreach calendar that we're planning on.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And just to continue where Giorgio's left off, we do have our marketing outreach activity It's good? Okay. Our marketing outreach activity schedule for 2022, it includes a number of engagements with a keen focus on trade and media activities, in addition to consumer travel-related trade shows that, of course, is going to be centered in our core market, in addition to new and emerging market segments. So we will focus on brand awareness and also re-engaging with our travel trade and media as we go through our business-to-business and business-to-consumer engagements. Now, coming out of COVID, I know that there is a pent-up demand. We know that there is a pent-up demand for travel. So therefore, our schedule has been very targeted. That would also feature our pillar experiences where we focus on our romance elements, our health and wellness segments, our leisure travels, family travels, incentive groups, and also generational travels. So for the month of January and February, we did participate in some key initiatives that really gave us the opportunity to have one-on-one engagements with our travel trade. And we attended the International Media Marketplace that was held in January 27th in New York, USA. So again, this was a direct engagement in fulfilling our public relations outreach. We also participated in the Travel and Adventure Show that was scheduled in Washington, D.C. There are a series of travel and adventure shows, and with this event that we attend, it gives us the opportunity to engage with the travel trade in addition to consumers. So consumers within those specific key markets is also a good opportunity for us to have one-on-one conversations and promote the destination even further. For the month of March, we will be participating in a wedding fair that's going to be held in Italy, again focusing on our romance pillar, and we know based on our marketing research and the travel trends, the Italians are eager to travel. There are a number of pent-up demand for destination weddings, honeymoon couples, and so forth. So our focus for the Italian market, in addition to our ongoing engagements, that we will focus on the wedding segment as well. We will also be attending a number of top-rated travel and media-related initiatives in the UK for the month of March. Again, coming out of the back end of COVID-19, there is pent-up demand for travel, and we are going to extend our outreach in the UK market as well. And with the addition of the American flight, direct flight from Miami, this gives us a better opportunity to have an additional connectivity for the UK travelers who are wishing to do twin destinations for those who are traveling to the US and would like to come to Anguilla. So again, we are re-engaging with the travel trade, media, and consumers alike as we position Anguilla under the campaign theme, Lose the Crowd, Find Yourself.
I think one more point maybe, or two more points to add here, just because we went a bit granular into the markets. The ATB has been traditionally active in 5 regions or markets worldwide. Of course, North America, especially with the US and Canada being the most important volume markets for the island. We have the UK, traditionally Italy, and South America as well, where we have been, where we've seen great numbers over the years. One more addition maybe, and just to emphasize what, oh, you can't hear me? You can't hear me? Yeah, I know it's the mask, but it's fine. I prefer not to today, for other reasons. Anyway, exactly. So I think one more point to emphasize here, and I'm going to speak a bit louder, is the fact that, imagine some markets haven't been active for the last 2 years, right? Especially the UK, if we look at it, the country just actually now surpassed or basically cut down all the COVID restrictions, right? So it's the first time again for them to be out there, to meet their travel partners, to meet the different destination marketing organizations. So our goal is not only to be there because it's our first opportunity, but it's also our first opportunity to start retraining again the different travel trade, the different sellers of destinations, but also, of course, the media. There have been a lot of shifts in the travel trade landscape, also in the media landscape. So we need to be out there and promote the destination basically from scratch, right? Because as mentioned for the third time, the competition is fierce. There's a lot of countries investing a lot of money into destination marketing, into their partnerships to become top of mind, to become where we have been, where we are, and where other destinations have been. So we need to be out there as well. And especially with a very strong program and a strong strategy that we have right now, we're going to be able to achieve this.
So if you have any questions, in the meantime, I just would like to commend this team because they have done a tremendous job in ensuring that Anguilla gets value for money in all of our marketing investments and collaborations that we've had and partnerships that we've had outside of Anguilla, and ensuring that our international partners respond to the benchmarks that are set and keep up with the expectations of our on-ground team. So I really do want to commend them for the work that they have done. You have a question?
I just wanted some clarity in Ms. Richardson's presentation. Did you mention a wedding in Italy? Or is the wedding coming here, or are ATB officials going to a wedding in Italy?
So we have a representation office in Italy that is taking care of ATB business. They will attend on our behalf that trade show, which is geared towards weddings, towards Romans travel, etc. Right? So we're using our local resources to attend those shows, to be representatives of the ATB, and to bring business and qualified marketing and qualified sales leads to us that we can then pass on to the accommodation sectors or to the other tourism stakeholders here on island. Exactly. So when we say travel or when we say engage internationally, we don't mean that we're going to be basically out there all the time, because we have the local resources in place as well.
What about our other markets, like for instance, the Latin American market? I know some time ago, focus was placed on that market because our most dominant market is the US. So our slow period is around the summertime. So when we have summer, they practically have summer as well. So I know at the time focus were mainly on the Latin American market to help attract tourists, to help revenue into the country during that slow period. What can you tell us about the status about the Latin American market?
So for us, it's still a nurture market, basically. It's not one of the core markets in that sense. So our investment is quite limited, to be honest. We're doing trade engagement, we're doing media engagement there as well. We don't have any brand activations there where we're investing more money than in other markets. But nevertheless, it is an important market for also some of the stakeholders here on island. So of course, we are following their guidance as well. Also, there is potential there, right? I mean, if you look at the different seasons, if you look at seasonality, their summertime is our wintertime, and vice versa. So we have another attraction there, basically for that market. It's going to be very limited. The numbers are never going to be as high as coming from the UK or even the US, of course. But there is some chance. There's some chance for private jet travel. There's some chance for families, multi-generational as well. And also, let's not forget that a lot of South American travelers are going to the Southeast US, especially to Florida, to Miami, where they have their base or where they have different interests. So it's actually quite easy for them as well to come to Anguilla on a multi-destination trip.
Alsec just mentioned about $1 million US in revenue. I'm just wondering, how would you describe the festive, the tourist season for this year? How would you describe it?
Well, I think from the feedback that I've received individually, and also from a joint feedback that we received from the different stakeholders, especially the accommodation sector, apparently it went very well. So I think this was something that we should be very proud of. The numbers speak for themselves. And to be very honest, I mean, looking into 2020 and in comparison to, of course, the year before, of course, our goal is to get back to pre-pandemic numbers. So I think especially with 2021 or with festive 2021 proving that we are on the upward trend, we definitely have the chance to attract even more.
A bit more about the work from home package. Are you seeing more persons utilizing this particular initiative?
Well, we've seen so far about 370 people last year making use of that program, buying into that program, coming here to Anguilla for a different time frame. Some came for 3 months, some came even for 8 months, 9 months, etc., to come to the island from different parts of the world. We just actually last week discussed a continuation of that program, so we're having a follow-up meeting later this month to continue a strategy on how we are going to move forward. We see still, again, numbers are going to be very limited as well. We're not talking about thousands, but we're talking about a potential here. We're talking about a potential of positioning Anguilla not only as a work from home or digital nomad destination, but also because the destination was actually one of the first ones to open that program for international visitors, to position it also as one of the thought leaders in that regard. And I think this is where we can definitely attract or get more traction actually for this program.
Question from online. When and where in the UK are you going to re-engage with the travel trade? Are you going to replace your UK rep, and if so, when?
Can you repeat the first part of the question? Sorry.
When and where in the UK are you going to re-engage with the travel trade? And are you going to replace your UK rep, and if so, when?
Okay. So in terms of the first part of the question, our engagement in the UK is going to start next week. It's going to be focused on London. We have a trade event that we are going to attend, which is called Unite Caribbean, where all the Caribbean destinations are gathering and speaking to the travel trade, especially to the tour operators. We're having a media engagement, which is called International Media Marketplace, which is a global event that happens in different cities. London is one stop, where we're going to engage with British travel media especially. We are having different get-togethers for the trade and media individually that is going to be steered and organized by us. So this is aside from the two events that I mentioned. And when it came to the second part of the question, this is an internal affair, basically, that we're not able to discuss here with the public at the moment.
Yes, so thank you. I'd like to thank Georgios and Chantel for joining us. We will definitely be inviting you guys back, but it was important for us to discuss where we're at right now as it relates to tourism, and the fact that as we are looking to a possible emergence from COVID, what Anguilla will be doing and how the progression of things like our vaccination rate, reduction of protocols, and that direction really goes hand in hand into reviving our economy in full swing. And just to show you that on the back end, there's a lot of work being done to ensure that Anguilla is on top of mind, and we're increasing our market share. And it's a fight. Everyone is trying to do the same thing, and I'm really, really proud of the work done, particularly by this team and our director, who is constantly ensuring that there's, first of all, value for money, and that Anguilla is represented internationally at these trade shows. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much and for coming, and continue to do the great job you're doing. Thank you. We're fast running out of time, and so what I'll do is, Minister, did you have something to add? Turn over to Minister for Infrastructure, who's also responsible for tourism, and then Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you very much, Premier. I first would like to welcome Mr. Elkin Richardson to the press corps today, because and happy belated birthday. It's good to see you here, sir. And I hope you have many questions for us today. Be that as it may, before we actually move on, I would like to address one of the assertions on the feed that our Mr. I could never pronounce it, Georgios, his salary is in the region of $600,000 a year, which amounts to $50,000 a month. And rest assured, nobody in Anguilla Public Service, whether it be statutory bodies or otherwise, make anywhere close to that. And his salary is way, way below that. And I'm sure that was published before. So I would like to address that, because I noticed that there were certain civil servants who are making that assertion too, and that is far from the truth. We believe in transparency, and that is why in these press conferences we try to invite as many of the members of the statutory bodies to give reports on what is happening, and questions can be asked. And in the question, and as I said before, all questions are on the table. Be that as it may, let me give a quick rundown to our ministry. The Ministry of Tourism and Infrastructure. As you know, airlift continues to be very strong. American Airlines is doing very well, and it has been a great partnership for the government and people of Anguilla, and obviously it's a great partnership for American Airlines as well, that continue to look at the possibility of increasing airlift into Anguilla. As you know, within a month, we'll have 7 weekly flights, 7 daily flights, 7 flights per week, sorry. And it might be possible we may have 8 flights per week or more. So we are looking at that possibility as well. And as I said before, it's all dependent on the levels of business. So when the shoulder season comes around, we cannot be surprised if you see a retrenchment of those flights. But be that as it may, we're very pleased in the partnership that has been going on thus far. And coming out of Roots, we have been engaged with other aviation companies, which I won't discuss at this time because, as you know, when these discussions are premature, the aviation companies, for some reason or not, they always pull back. And we've had that recent situation with one of the major airline companies out of the US. As the Parliamentary Secretary said, Elvis Beach Bar was #1 in the Caribbean, with Sunshine Shack being #5. That is a great accolade for Anguilla. Anguilla Air Services was mentioned in the CNN article. A significant mention as well, and it bodes well to the services that we provide, not only in terms of international carriers, but also local carriers. And we have a number of local carriers that continue to service the immediate region. Small cruises, we have weekly small cruises coming into Anguilla at the moment, which has bode well for ground transportation or taxi drivers. We are still working on looking at amendments to the Litter Abatement Act. And the Commissioner of Police, Mr. David Lynch, recently announced at one of these press conferences that he'll be rebuilding the traffic department, which is something that is very important for us. And the Vehicle and Road Traffic Act fall under the remit of the Ministry of Infrastructure and Tourism. So we are very keen on that as we walk through the regulations, to finalize regulations on the Vehicle and Road Traffic Act, namely the seatbelt regulations, driving under the influence, taxi and drunk transportation regulations, child seatbelt regulations, and vanity plates, personalized number plate regulations. We hope within the next 6 weeks we will have them ready to be signed off on, and they can come to the public for protection of the public, and also to offer a new thing in terms of vanity plates for persons. The Anguilla Tourist Board representatives just exited the room from the Anguilla Tourist Board. As you know, Tiago Sarmento was a representative on the Anguilla Tourist Board for the better part of a year and a half, and he has moved on to South Africa to manage property, Belmont property in South Africa. And we recently replaced him with Mr. Diego, I can't pronounce his last name, Angelitas. He is the general manager of the Four Seasons Hotel. So he'll be joining Chairman Kenroy Hubbard, Lucy Mendez, Condon Proctor, Monica Bryan, Danitza Mussington as members of the Anguilla Tourist Board. The Anguilla Tourist Board, we believe, has been doing a tremendous job, obviously. And we always want to have that great working relationship between the private and public sector. And Tiago was a great representative at the Anguilla Tourist Board, and we hope that Diego continues in that vein. Because it is important as it relates to destination marketing, as it relates to marketing this destination. Everybody's at the table, everybody's having a voice, and we can move in the same direction. That is to put more heads in beds and to increase the revenue opportunities for everybody, including the government of Anguilla. The Parliamentary Secretary alluded to the fact that we received into the coffers of government the highest figure for accommodation tax in the history of this island. So that says a lot, because even as we look at what is pre and post pandemic, because we're still in the pandemic, to know that we were able to receive that record amount of dollars, I think it was over $8 million into the coffers for the month of January in terms of accommodation tax, says that we are well on our way not only to revitalize the tourism industry, but really and truly to grow our economy to the position where everybody in Anguilla can have an opportunity to earn a living, a decent living in this economy. We are, as you may have seen, and I know quite a few people have reported and have seen, that the Blowing Point Ferry Terminal is going along quite well. The contractor reported that he's a little bit ahead of schedule, which is good, because there's always something that is going to pop up, whether it be bad weather or what have you. So we're on track to have the Blowing Point Ferry Terminal open for the upcoming season. I think it's going to be a great addition to our entire product. Even though we are seeking to develop the airport and so forth, the airport and the seaport work together in tandem, because even though we have developed quite a bit of airlift out of the airport, the significant majority of visitors to Anguilla still come via the seaport, and we hope to continue to grow that even as we grow visitors coming through the airport. So it means that every single sector, whether it be the charter boats, the ferry boats, the aviation companies, everybody benefits from what the vision of the Honourable Premier is, and that is to create an economy that everybody can live and thrive in. The Carteret Boulevard, as you can see, we have reached a milestone in that the southern side of the Carteret Boulevard has now been completed in terms of the road itself. The sidewalks will be completed this afternoon. They started pouring this morning, and they should be finished this afternoon. And while that is being done, the curbs that lead from the Anglican Church over to the roundabout at the James Ronald Webster Park is being installed at this time. The farm walk is being installed. The pouring is going to commence on Wednesday this week. And then the pouring of the road leading to the James Ronald Webster Park from the Anglican Church will commence on Friday of this week. We'll continue pouring over the weekend and into next week. So hopefully by next week, we will have the entire road from roundabout to roundabout completed in terms of paving. And then the following week, we'll be just placing the additional sidewalk and markings. The markings of the road is going to be very important. A lot of people have said that we need to have instructional videos as it relates to how roundabouts are used, but I believe that we have had decades of experience in terms of using roundabouts in Anguilla. There's a number of roundabouts already in Anguilla. We are installing 3 roundabouts at the Carteret Boulevard, 3 new roundabouts, and it's going to help the flow of traffic, but at the same time, please, we know how to use them. All we have to do is follow the rules. And I'm very pleased with the work that is being done at the Carteret Boulevard. I think this is something that we all can be proud of, and the vehicular and road users also can be proud of. And those taxi drivers, ground transportation, car rentals, you know, the shocks will have an easement, and it's something to be celebrated. So I'm very excited. I've said that our top drop date is March the 22nd. So hopefully March the 22nd, all of you will be there. I know Elkin and I can walk the entire road together from one end to the next end, knowing that the entire road is financed, fully paid for, and completed. As you can see over at the junction, at the James Ronald Webster Junction, we are rebuilding the drainage there. The way the drainage was built in the past was not optimal. So it's already blocked, it's already decked, it's ready to be poured, and hopefully that'll be poured this week as well, to ensure that that drainage is completed. And then we'll have the water also drain over into what we call the valley aquifer, the valley bottom, on the other side of the street. So that'll help everybody and also ensure that water is not on the road. We've had some tests. God have blessed us with some pours of rain that have given us the opportunity to look at how these drains work, and we're very pleased in how they are working thus far. So the last but not least, the terminal, the airport terminal, we should have at least advanced drawings should be with us this month. And as I said before, once they come, we will definitely share them with the public. We'll have that discussion. I'm sure everybody's going to have ideas as to how we can move forward with it. But rest assured that all of this work is doing in conjunction with the regulatory body, S.A.F.E, and all of the aviation companies. So we are having an input from the major players to ensure that we have something that meets international standards, that will not have any issues with regulators, because this is very important to ensure that our airport continues to be viable and we don't breach any of those regulations as it relates to aviation and the aerodrome. The road to the Albina Lake Arch Comprehensive School, the new site, has been surveyed, has been designed, and hopefully that the work will commence this week, if not next week. So that is where we are in the ministry at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, just 2 questions from me. You mentioned the seatbelt legislation, and you spoke about driving under the influence. In this particular, for this particular matter, driving under the influence, will our police officers be equipped with breathalyzers to be able to ensure the blood alcohol content? And what would be considered a normal blood alcohol content?
Well, sorry. Of course, and there will be amendments to legislation also to deal with that, because at present there's no real legislative framework to deal with driving under the influence. I can't say exactly what that number is, but I'm sure that in consultations and the discussions, we will look at best practices and what is universally accepted and ensure that that is ensuring in that particular legislation.
You spoke about the drawings for the airport. I'm just wondering, based on the drawings, what is the estimated cost for the airport project?
All of that will be presented to us as well. Not only the designs and drawings, We have a preliminary idea of what it looks like, what the capacity is, what the scope is in terms of the way it's being built and designed. The way it's being designed that if in the future there's a need for expansion, you can expand without any major demolition or anything like that. But we don't have all of those figures in front of us, but as soon as we get it, as I said before, we will definitely provide it to the press and the media.
Honorable Hughes, sir, you mentioned the road from the Anglican Church to the Ronald Webster's Park parking lot. As it relates to funding, there were a number of questions or concerns from persons in the public as it relates to the funding for that extra piece of road. Could you shine a light, sir, on that particular concern as to whether or not who was responsible for providing the funding for the last half of the road?
Well, to be honest with you, the funding for the entire road was always provided. It was provided from the very inception, the entire road, but the road was done in 3 different sections under 3 different contractual arrangements. As a matter of fact, the heavy equipment aspect of it, as you know, there's one company, Superior, that has won both of the bids for the heavy equipment provision. They are there all the time. That was in 2 contracts. And then you had 3 contracts for the road itself, the construction and labor of the road, and another contract for the provision of concrete. So Anguilla Masonry Products, they won the bid for the provision of the concrete. Sunshine Construction won the bid for the construction of the road from the Social Security Junction over to the airport roundabout, if we may call it that. B's Construction won the contract from just south of Flow to the Anglican Church, including the provision of the drainage systems there. And Sunrise Construction won the contract from the Anglican Church to the roundabout at the James Ronald Webster Park. But the funding was always provided for through the Economic Resilience, UK Economic Resilience Fund. I know I've heard of those concerns, and I could not understand where those concerns came from. And that's why I never really addressed it, because I always figure that there's proof in the pudding. There's proof in seeing it completed rather than saying, hey, it's going to be done.
The understanding, what was out there, sir, is that the British government had provided funding for the road from the Anglican Church to the roundabout by the Lucas Wilson Junction. That's what we know about. And that's the reason why there was a halt in the road. And now we found out afterwards that a road would be continuing from the Anglican Church to the Ronald Webster parking lot. So the question out there that people are asking whether or not that particular half of the road is being privately funded or if it's been funded by the British government. We know that it's been completed. We are aware. We know work is continuing on the road. But the concern that people are having is this notion about who pays the piper called to June. So that is the reason why there are people out there who are wondering whether there was any private entity involved in providing any monies for the last half of the road. That's all.
Well, I can say unequivocally that the entire road was being funded from the very same Economic Resilience Fund from the very inception. And if you look at the length of the road, that is not really half of the road. That's less than a third of the road. But from the very inception, from way back in June of 2021, when we announced the development of the road, the funding was there for the entirety of the road. I believe that misunderstanding came about because of the way the road was partitioned. You had one section being done, another section being done, then a following section being done. But that was also to ensure that we had as least disturbance to the businesses in the area. We know that there will be some disturbances to the businesses in the area, and I feel their pain because they have suffered and they have made a sacrifice in terms of the economic prospects for them during the time of this development of the road. But that was always the case. It was always the case that 100% of this funding from the very inception was being provided by the UK Economic Resilience Fund. I've heard also the notion that a private entity is funding the road, and that is far from the truth. That is very far from the truth. It's all come from the same pot. And as it relates to who pays the piper, pays the tune, I don't know how that marries into this, because the rules and regulations as it relates to the use of that road will not come from the Economic Resilience Fund or the United Kingdom government. It will fall under the remit of the local prevailing law and legislation as it relates to vehicle and road traffic use here in Anguilla.
The last part on the road, sir, has to do with the fact, the notion that you have been micromanaging the project, and especially the folks down at Department of Infrastructure, particularly when it relates to roads. What could you say to that, sir?
I would say guilty. I would say that as the minister responsible for infrastructure, responsible to the people of Anguilla, and the task that the Honourable Premier has bestowed upon me as a minister, it is my duty to ensure that we receive value for money and the job is done. At the end of the day, the one person who will get the blame, not necessarily the praise, but the one person who gets the blame is the minister. And if I am accused of being micromanaging the Carterway development of the Carterway Boulevard, I stand as guilty. And I will not apologize for ensuring that that work is being done. Fortunately, you were missing last week, I think it was, a week before, when we spoke to the update on Caribbean Airlines. Caribbean Airlines have some real difficulties with the various protocols throughout the region. So at this time, they have put on hold any expansion of any new routes at least for the foreseeable future. Hopefully, when protocols change for the respective islands, because each one of the islands have different protocols, and it's proved to be very cumbersome for them. And so that is not on the table at this time. Once we become, we can declare that we are in the endemic stage throughout the region, then the possibility of Caribbean Airlines coming to our shores is there. And we have had those discussions as recent as maybe 2 weeks ago, I believe it is. Thanks for the question.
Secondly, I would like to, because we are having a lot of crisscrossing with information being disseminated to the public. Since last year, I've been asking for when are we going to tackle the broadcast legislation, and when would we be looking at a Freedom of Information Act so that people can go to get the information and stop this crisscrossing about blaming here and there when the information is being provided.
Public Relations Officer recently created a Twitter account for the government of Anguilla. So we have a Twitter account, we have Facebook, and we have YouTube. And one of the things that he's also working on is a government information service, so that you can always go there and find all of the information that you so require. So that is happening. As it relates to Freedom of Information Act, I don't recall if that was part of our legislative agenda for 2022, but I do know that the previous administration, which I was part of, a Freedom of Information Act went to Executive Council on more than one occasion, and it was a tremendous fight from the other side of the table as it relates to that. It is something that we need. Freedom of information, and even in the absence of freedom of information, this government seeks to give all the information to the public. Like we always say, no question is off the table. And I'm always appreciative of the hard questions and even those things that are being said out there that are not factual. So while it is, we don't have that Freedom of Information Act at this time, the information is free.
Okay. You spoke about we heard about the accommodation tax being the best that we have ever had before and even during the pandemic. What would you say is the reason for us to raising so much money even at this time?
Ms. Chantel Richardson and Georgios spoke to that a little bit, and also the Parliamentary Secretary. Not only the pent-up demand, but we were positioning ourselves from the very inception, from July of 2020. For this day, the Premier, very early o'clock, because remember, when we came to office, this entire economy was shut down. Almost 100% of hospitality workers were at home. waiting on a subsistence of 1,000 EC dollars per month, which barely could do anything. So the Premier's goal was to ensure that this economy is open, and he said from the very inception, we must increase our appetite for risk in order to ensure that we have a balance between economic growth, economic opportunities, and protecting the health and well-being of the people of Anguilla. And incrementally we have done this, and we have stayed in the marketplace. We unveiled the digital nomad program even before we opened the island completely. That bode well. We received over $1 million, just over $1 million out of the digital nomad program. We were one of the first countries to unveil the digital nomad program. I know Barbados had announced as well, but they had some hiccups. Australia, Hawaii, and the like. But Anguilla has done pretty well with the digital nomad program. And then the marketing that went behind not only the digital nomad program, but Lose the Crowd and Find Yourself, and the job that the Anguilla Tourist Board and the respective partners in terms of the hotel, villa accommodations, and the like have done, have positioned Anguilla to be in a very strong position as we rebound from the ravages of the pandemic. So I believe it's a collective effort, not only by the government of Anguilla, led by the Premier, because without his leadership, we wouldn't be where we are, but also the buy-in and the engagement and the cooperation between the private and public sector, and our marketing program has bode well for us here in Anguilla.
Be that as it may, what role the IRD played in that, the whole situation?
Well, without the IRD, you would have no collections.
Right. Well, that's the point I'm trying to get. You know, we speak about having this money, but we haven't spoken about having the capacity to collect this money.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what needs, I think, for the public to know, that the IRD have played a major role.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
and they will continue to play a major role even beyond July the 1st, 2022.
Okay. With the road, you talk about the roundabout, and you do not need instructional video. I think it would be a mistake for us, because even the larger countries, when they put on something, even though they are aware that people know you're flying an airplane, even though that they think that you know, they still have that instructional video or instruction for people. So I would like to see that those instructions are being put in.
We will have an instructional video, but what I was saying is that we have a lot of experience in, you know, it just seems strange that at this late stage in the game, we would still need instructional videos to navigate around about, but we will have that instructional video, so thank you.
Mr. Hughes, Minister Hughes, can you please give a little bit of clarification to what was meant by micromanaging the Carteret Boulevard development, as there is speculation that the tender process for the last section of the road was not a fair process?
Well, I would say this: the political directorate under the procurement legislation, under the framework for fiscal responsibility, have no part to play in the tender process, in the procurement process for the government of Anguilla in a statutory body. And the way it is done, I believe that the chair lady, Ms. Marissa Harden-Hodge, was recently on Radio Anguilla, along with the procurement officer, which is Ms. Ludianne Leverett, explained the whole process. So once a tender goes out, it comes in, there's an evaluation committee who's separate people altogether. That evaluation committee also have persons from the governor's office on that evaluation committee, because it is UK government funds. Once that evaluation process goes, it goes to the tender board. And this Carteret Boulevard, it had a tender before, and that tender failed. Right? And that tender failed, and it went back out to tender, and went out to tender the second time. Then these contractors are the ones who won that second tender. One of the tenders who won on the second tender also tendered on the first tender, and that tender failed as well. So the political directorate has nothing to do in terms of the procurement process, absolutely nothing. I think when it comes to, when they say that I am micromanaging, they see me on the road every day. They see me at these projects every day. And as a person who's responsible for these projects, I will be there every single day. I will take an hour out of the office to ensure and to look at it for myself, so that when I sit in this press conference, I can speak with some level of confidence in terms of where we are and where we're going as it relates to these projects. I don't think that I should just be sitting in the office. I think that I should be out there, understand what is going on, dialoguing, having discussions with the contractors, understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, having discussions with the project team, the project management team, Mr. Bancroft Batik and Mr. Shane Iskana, who's doing a tremendous job, and those conversations occur every single day. And I believe that it's within my remit to have those conversations. It's just not to say, okay, we're going to have this project and then it's on my back, and then when something goes wrong, they point the finger at me. If I'm going to be responsible at the end of the day, I'm going to be responsible, and I'm going to play a meaningful part in looking and seeing, and if I see any things that is not going the way they ought to be, bring them up to the relevant authorities, and those relevant authorities are the project manager, and sometimes in some instances, all the way to the governor's office, because I will not allow taxpayers' money to be abused and misused, and I'm not saying that is happening, but it will not happen under my watch in my ministry, the ministry that I've been tasked with.
A question, sir, I guess general, anybody can answer, as relates to development. We are aware of the fact that a lot of development is going on the island, and it would appear as if most of these were either partially started or ongoing from the last administration. What new has the government got in the pipeline or plans for development after these projects would have been completed? And secondly, maybe a question probably maybe to Dr. Webster. I know for many years now, the people on the eastern end of the island were crying out for development as it relates to people who work in the hotel industry, have to travel from Island Harbor all the way to West End to work. Gas is expensive. Any plans so for any infrastructure hotel development on the eastern end of the island as far as Scrub?
I'll answer that last part of your question and turn it over to the Minister of Economic Development. He can answer about what is new and what is proposed. Certainly, the Savannah Bay development project is right now being worked on. The land was bought by a corporation out of Naples, Florida. In fact, I visited them in Naples last week before last, and they are now here on the island still working on that project. So the plan is to have a marina, 2 hotels, and luxury villas and condos in that area. That is currently MOU is being worked on, and we hope to get that started as soon as those logistics are worked out. So that will help the people on the eastern end of the island. Certainly we want to see that. We've been wanting that to happen, and this is a good project that will help not only the people on the east but all of Anguilla. And also with that, in all of our MOUs, we require a social project along with a bond or an escrow account that any third-party contractors that are foreign that come to Anguilla, any of these projects that will use Anguillan contractors, that there has to be a bond or an escrow that protects the Anguillan workers so that they are paid and that the company doesn't leave and not cover them. So with this one, we have been asking for the boardwalk and the Island Harbor area to be part of that project, and that's what we're working on at the moment. I'll turn over to the Minister for Economic Development just to answer the rest of your question, and then if you have any other questions, we'll answer the Minister. Go ahead.
Thank you, Premier. Just to answer further, we started an MOU with a medical school as soon as we came to office. That is something that we negotiated from the beginning, straight on to the end. We would have signed that MOU just late December 2021. But there's also 2 projects to start in the Shoal Bay area. One is a mega luxury villa, and that should be started by September. So we are going through that MOU right now. And the other one is a retirement village center. That conversation is ongoing. And we're also facilitating talks of a fish processing plant in the area of Island Harbor. So as it relates to the east, there are plenty of projects being proposed. There's also talks about the project down Crocus Bay, Cebu. There's supposed to be some expansion of that project, but we are still talking with those developers as well. So as it relates to your particular question, there are a lot of projects that we would have initiated since coming to office. Rendezvous is also another project. We are finalizing that MOU. We are wrapping up the lease with the pond. That is the final straw to deal with. And then also Altima. That MOU is completed. It's just now a matter of signing that document with the proposed investors. So that signage may take place virtually. It might take place in person. We're just waiting for final correspondence from them. But we have done all our work, and we're just waiting on them to come through now with signage.
I think the Minister of Education, Deanne Kentish-Rogers, was the acting premier during, I believe so, during the unfortunate incident that happened just about last week. And I personally haven't heard a condemnation from the government. I know normally when such things happen, we will get a statement from the government condemning such an action. And I think Miss Kentish-Rogers, you were the acting premier during that time. You think there was a oversight of something that a statement wasn't issued from the government side? A slip or something? Someone said?
No, I wouldn't call it an oversight. No, I wouldn't call it an oversight. In matters with international relations, I think it's still important for us to consider that there are undercurrents in relation to this. We, as the government of Anguilla, understand and we are monitoring the situation in Ukraine, and that's for a number of reasons. We are looking at how it is going to affect probably gas prices, and how, and how all these things are impacting the global.
About the murder down.
I didn't understand what you didn't say it very specifically. What did you say?
Yeah, that was speaking about, yes.
About the young lady who was murdered.
Yes.
Yes. In matters such as that, a statement, a statement was issued on the Friday, the Saturday, I believe, and the Friday. The first statement being a plea to the Anguillan public to actually help with looking for the young lady. And of course, since that statement was written, we would have found out that she was murdered. And in circumstances such as this, of course, we condemn the murder of our people, our young women in this country, especially since we are here in the middle of Women's Week. And no, I don't consider it an oversight for a number of reasons. The first is that this administration, when we found out about the news, our first instinct and our first approach was to go and be with the families. I think before we talk about what is said, I think it's about being empathetic to the fact that this is a human being with family members, and that we have to be there for those family members as they're in this time of grieving, to ensure that they know that we are not there for them just on the virtual platforms or just on radio. It's also about being there in person and sharing our time with the family. And I can tell you that during that period when I was acting, I was there in person anytime Kimberly's mother needed us. So I think it's important for us to look at the whole picture. I know that sometimes we want to see things everywhere, but in a matter that was as chilling as this, I felt that the more important action to take was actually to be there for the family. So that's what I did.
Yes, also I must say that, you know, the police did put out statements, and there's ongoing investigation. We certainly can state that we are abhorred by the incident, but in terms of then being able to give specific information, which it seems that people want, we cannot do that when it's an ongoing investigation. So thank you for raising it. We certainly continue to stay close to the family, and we are, you know, awaiting, you know, updates from the police as the investigation continues.
Honourable Premier, the point, I don't want anybody to miss the point I'm trying to make. What I was saying is that in matters of that nature, normally from the head of state, in this case the Premier or somebody acting as Premier, normally would have issued a statement in condemning the action, but that didn't come from the government. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Minister regarding his portfolio? If not, I turn over to the Minister for Home Affairs, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Premier. Just two quick updates. One, just to announce that the Immigration Task Force will be teaming up with the officials from the Labor Department to reinstitute their joint patrols. There are a number of persons who come here as visitors. They end up overstaying, or there are persons who come here as visitors and they are working. This is an illegal practice, and so the task force will be out and about checking up on these persons, and we are advising employers, especially who are employing persons illegally, that this is an illegal practice. So the task force will be up and about. And again, just to announce that for some weeks I have been telling you about the familiarization visits I'll be undertaking. Those visits will start tomorrow, Tuesday. So we are going down to Maliohana and a Burj restaurant in the afternoon, and we will be visiting key areas of the property, talking with the senior management and work permit holders, as well as meeting with the lower ranks of the staff there in a safe and private environment. I just want to really thank the management and staff who have been very helpful to us in making the internal arrangements for these visits. We know that the month of February was a busy one. There was a major wedding and there were other related activities. And so we never got off the ground in February. We are beginning in March, and of course, again, quite a few of the properties are very busy, they are booked out. So we have had to tailor our visits to suit, because we do not want to really inconvenience anyone, but these visits are necessary and we will be undertaking them in the coming weeks. That is the nature of my brief update here this afternoon.
Mr. Hodge, as it relates to the labor officials and the Immigration Task Force joining together, is this something that will be ongoing, or is it just for a specific period of time?
It has been ongoing. It has always been done in the past, but you know, with all the lockdowns we've had over the COVID period, things kind of were laid to rest, but this has always been a practice undertaken in the past. Those patrols, yes.
Can you provide an update on the work to address the minimum wage and a living wage?
Yes. So we are at a stage now where we are constituting the committee. We've had one or two setbacks in that regard, where a number of employers and employees would have declined to serve on the committee. But that setback, we are overcoming that. We are recruiting additional persons. So I would say within the next 2 weeks, we should be able to be in a position to take this paper to council. We thought it would have been done before, but as I said, persons have to serve on this committee, and we wanted to ensure that we have persons who are capable of serving. I must say one of the plus of this is that we have had a couple of persons who have come forward to indicate their interest in serving, and we are very grateful for that as well. So we are looking forward within the next 2 weeks to have this committee formally approved by Executive Council.
Would you say that the reason why you have illegal workers in terms of persons who coming on a visitor working, is it because of lack of manpower? And if it's lack of manpower on the island, would y'all make it easier for persons to get work permits?
No, what I would say to you is this. If any employer has any shortage or need for employment, there's a process. They go into the Labor Department, indicate what their needs are, and the Labor Department has a database already of workers, and if that skill cannot be provided locally, once it's advertised and no one has been identified, then yes, there's an option to bring someone on a work permit. But there's a process that has to be followed before we can consider bringing in anybody on a work permit.
A question to you, Honorable Hodge, regarding work permits. I know for many years it was the notion that a person would identify a suitable qualified person to replace a person who would come in and be employed on a work permit. As far as I'm aware, sir, and working in the system for many years, that is not a law. It's only but a policy. But I'm wondering if somewhere along the line, if the government could find some way to enshrine that in a legal framework. Because if I'm a hotelier and I have an accountant working and he comes in for 1 year and on the form would state what have been done to make provisions for suitable qualified and willing to fill the post, whatever he puts on that form, that's only but a matter of writing, putting pen to paper. But there's nothing the government of Anguilla can hold him to if at the end of 1 year he haven't provided a suitable qualified person to fill the post as an Anguillan.
Yeah.
You're just saying it, but there's nothing in law. So can the government consider putting some legal framework to that to make it mandatory that at some point in time, these employers or these hoteliers will have to find a way to get a suitable qualified Anguillan to fill a post, else they will be there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And they always say, well, they haven't found a suitable qualified Anguillan to fill the post. And the expat continues to work and work and work.
Yes. So that's a good question, Elkin. And over the years, yes, that has been an issue. We have addressed that issue now with the development of our understudy policy, and we are rolling that out very soon. When we sign work permits, there are conditions attached, and one of those conditions is an understudy. It's not an understudy that goes there for sake of a name. There's a process that identifies a suitable person to put in that position, and we are going to be monitoring the progress of that understudy to ensure that the requisite interventions are done. So at the end of a year or 2 years or 3 years, you cannot come back and tell me that the person that was there was never suitable from the beginning. So we are basically taking care of that issue from the get-set, because that has caused a lot of frustration over the years, that we had employers just put names down for name's sake because they knew full well the person wasn't capable, and then 3 years later we had to go back through the same process again. We are moving now to deal with that fairly and squarely with the understudy policy. So from the get-set, we identify what are the needs, we find somebody to put in that position that can be trained up to that level from the get-set.
It might be my last question. I asked a lot because I wasn't here for nearly 2 years. The last question, sir, as relates to occupational health and safety. And it came from the backdrop of a video I saw with the Honorable Hughes and the Public Relations Officer as relates to the walkthrough down at the Blowing Point for her terminal. And I noticed a number of workers on that project, maybe all of them except for the person who's responsible for the project, Mr. Gums. He was the only person who had on a helmet. That's what I saw, at least what the Public Relations Officer snapped. That's what I saw. Okay. In terms of health, because this will impact on social security, it will impact on the whole of Anguilla. When you have people on the work site and they're not dressed properly for the purpose of the job.
Yeah.
So I think it would be important if we had put legislation in place to ensure that they wear the proper footgear, the shoes, the boots, and the helmet. And that's not only in the construction industry, all over Anguilla. To make sure that the people are properly dressed and attired for the job for which they're performing.
Yeah.
Because we can end up draining Social Security if a few persons will get injured as a result of something that they could have avoided in terms of how they were dressed.
Yeah.
So that needs to be looked at very seriously.
So let me assure you that I would have indicated in a previous press conference that we are undertaking a review of the labor legislation at this time. And I did indicate at a previous session that we've had a policy meeting that was very productive. And the issue of occupational health and safety, collective bargaining, these are all aspects of legislation that we are looking at to move forward. So your concern is well taken, sir. And from a legislative standpoint, we are moving to ensure that a requisite legislation is put in place.
Thank you, Minister. I am conscious of the time that we've exceeded our hour, but I'd like the Minister for Education to give us a quick update. Brief is usually a term that we use for politicians. So.
Thank you, Premier. So just a brief update, because we are smack in the middle of Women's Week. So this morning, Lloyd would have joined the Gender Affairs Unit as we were at Simply Natural. And then we went to the Juice Bar this afternoon. At both locations, we had 2 of our Women's Week honorees serving us some wellness treats. And so it's really a pleasure to launch into this Women's Week. International Women's Day is tomorrow under the theme, Break the Bias. Anguilla's interpretation of the theme is Breaking the Bias, Building a Better Me. So we would have had a number of honorees who will be recognized for the rest of this week, and you'll see them on the Gender Affairs Facebook page. These would have been young women across the island who would have been nominated by members of the community for wellness activities. So we're very excited to break the bias with the women of Anguilla. On Sunday, we had the Hats and Heels Empowerment Brunch that was hosted by Jade and her team. And of course, we continue to applaud Jade and her team for the hard work they've done for 6 years with the Hats and Heels Empowerment Brunch, which has raised sufficient funds for the launch of the Stop Abuse for Everyone psychosocial hotline, which has now been put under the Gender Affairs Unit in the Ministry of Social Development and Education. So we're very excited about that. We're also excited next week to launch our Social Work Month. As you know, social workers make up a significant part of the backbone of this country. The work that they do is commonly unseen, but it is a lot of work, and so we want to thank them in advance for all of the work that they're doing. I won't go into too much detail in relation to some of the other projects. We'll get some updates as the weeks go in. I'd also like to reaffirm that we will be having Festival del Mar, and we will be having Carnival this year. So these are some events for you to look forward to. And of course, the famous Moon Splash will also be happening. So keep your ears in tune. I know that a number of persons would have been expecting Sports Day to have happened already, because February is usually the month in which you'd see high school and primary school Sports Day. But as I have explained before, a number of the schools would have been doing, will be doing external examinations. And because of the time lost, because of e-learning, we have to reschedule sports days. So it is not that sports days are canceled, it is that they are rescheduled. And we're just looking for the date that suits all stakeholders best. So that is the update from the Ministry of Social Development and Education. And if you would like to get some more information, please look at our Facebook page. We'll get you all the information you need. Brief.
Thank you. Any questions for the Minister? We go over to Economic Development then for a brief update. Since you've answered Mr. Richardson's questions.
Thank you, Premier. Just to update on the manufacturing policy. The ministry, led by the PS and Commerce Officer Shama Haj, we would have visited 20 manufacturing companies in Anguilla a few months ago. So we have started drafting the policy, but we're at the point now where we sent out some surveys to all 20 manufacturers, and we are seeking information. We are seeking to get financial implications that the policy will have. So we are asking manufacturers to fill out those surveys. We've only gotten, out of 20, we've only gotten about 7 of them completed. So what we want manufacturers to do is to fill in the raw materials that they require, and also to put in the percentage of duties that they pay for each item. Now I know that Anguilla's tariff is a little complex and complicated, so I'm appealing to them to fill out as much information as they can. In instances where they can't fill out the relevant percentage, just leave it blank, and we will work with customs to get the balance of the information completed in terms of the financial implications. It is our hope that we have the manufacturing policy legislation in place by June of 2022. We are already looking at the region in terms of what they do, in terms of manufacturing and the legislation that they have. We currently have on hand the legislation out of St. Kitts and Nevis that is very helpful to us. But in order for us to draft the policy, we would need to include the financial implications, just how we did with the agriculture and the fisheries standing exemption. We did that exemption, and we included the financial implications, and it was passed. So, just to appeal to manufacturers to fill out the survey. It was emailed to each manufacturer, and it was also sent out via text message. So that message is supposed to be in your phone, in your message inbox somewhere. So that is me. That is my update for today. Next week I'll come back with some other updates. Any questions?
How do farmers and fishers fit into the manufacturing policy equation?
Well, they have a separate policy. There's the standard exemptions for farmers and fishers. So the manufacturing legislation is specific for manufacturers. But of course, if you're into processing, agri-processing, then I guess you would fit both categories. So it's just a matter of applying. If you're a processor, if you're producing pepper sauces and you need to import raw materials like the empty jars, the caps and what's not, you will also fall into the manufacturing category as well. But just if I can give a quick update, Premier, the ADB bounce back loan, I got confirmation that the rate was reduced from 4.75 to 3%. So just to put out there, thanks to the Premier, the PS, the PAS, for pushing to reduce the percentage of the bounce back loan. This loan was specific to farmers, fishers, manufacturers, and those in the tourism industry. The Premier would have pushed hard, and thanks to ADB as well for accepting that 3% will be the new rate for those low interest loans. So that is unheard of. So, just appealing again to fishers, farmers, small business owners to go in to visit ADB. This is the bounce back loan program, and it's to help to recover from the effects of COVID.
I have a question outside your presentation. This has to do in relation to the governor's statement. This has to do in relation to the governor's statement she issued last week as it relates to the sanctions Russian businesses and individuals looking to do business in Anguilla. I'm just wondering, as Minister of Economic Development, do we know how many Russian businesses are registered on island?
I wouldn't know, no.
Okay.
It's a question that I would need to ask as well.
Thank you.
I wouldn't have that information on hand.
Okay.
That is currently ongoing with the company registry. We looking into that, and the impact certainly we will know as that investigation is going on. Yeah.
One last question. Yes, last one. This will be posed to, of course, the Honourable Premier. As Minister, I've been following the press conferences ever since this new government started. And most of the times, if not almost all the time, we have been getting updates from the Ministry of Health. We were only getting updates relative to COVID-19. And as Minister of Health, we haven't been getting any update from the Minister. I'm not asking you to go and micromanage the health department, but there are cries out there that they are not seeing the Minister of Health as often as they think they should see him. And as recent as last week, someone said when they make a telephone call to the Minister of Health, he would say, "Thanks for telling me." So I think you may have to find a way to get a closer bond with the folks in the Ministry of Health, because they want to see the Minister of Health. We know you have a lot of hats. You are the Premier, Minister of Finance, Economic Development, but the folks in the Ministry of Health would like to see the Premier more often. I don't know how you're going to get it balanced, but I'm only telling you because I'm out there and you weren't here.
Thanks for telling me. No, I appreciate, I've certainly been available, and, I listen to a lot of complaints from patients, from staff, from professionals. What we want to do is make sure that we look out for the well-being of the people of Anguilla. And as you know, the last 2 years, essentially COVID has taken over the world, and that has been the focus. But we are focusing on legislation towards the chronic non-communicable diseases, to the Health Professions Act, which we are working on, to legislation regarding national health insurance, national health fund. These are all ongoing, even though we don't speak about them every day. We're certainly working on that, and bringing the health authority back under the Ministry of Health. These are all items that are being worked on. And so I thank you, though, for looking to that, and certainly wishing you well in the upcoming by-election. Certainly want to thank everyone. I do want, yes, go ahead, please.
Well, the mic was off, so the question is, seeing that the war is going on, gas prices are going up, what the government of Anguilla is going to be doing in order to help alleviate, to ease the pressures of the people, and that's the crux of it.
Certainly a good question. As you know, the price of fuel is going up. That started even before the war started, but we do know that since then the prices have escalated. A barrel of oil is over $100 at this point in time. Even before the war started, I have been meeting with the technocrats in the Ministry of Finance so that we could look at that, because we do know that cost of living has gone up because shipping, supply as being decreased, and that is something that we have seen the effect. Again, we're looking at the different areas where we can get some relief. I have met with our financial advisor and discussed this with the Minister of Finance, as I said, technocrats. I've met with representatives from the fuel suppliers, and we are looking at measures of how we can find relief. And certainly, when we figure that out, we'll come back to you. Customs Department has been engaged also in this venture. But we certainly want to find some relief in terms of the fuel prices, which we think will help to curtail some of this increase. But we do know that this is a global issue right now. It's not just here in Anguilla. I want to thank everyone. I know that you've been very patient. It looks we're just about 2 hours, and we usually want a 1 hour press conference, but your attention spans are good. We welcome the presence of Brother Elkin Richardson as part of the press corps, and certainly want to thank you all for coming out. Lloyd from Lloyd's Live, Mr. Elkin Richardson, independent journalist, Felicia from Radio Anguilla, Dr. Joyce from the Anguillian, Mr. Pickering from KCN Channel 4, certainly Dietz for always being here and for carrying this and being great stewards. We have our liaison to the Spanish-speaking community, Ms. Lamantang, or Guzman Lamantang, and then also PRO, Ivan, our ministerial assistant, the Minister of Finance, the guy who makes sure that the zeros add up and the percentages are right, Mr. Courtney Morton. And then for able ministers, thank you for your time and for the work you continue to do to move this country in the right direction. Again, this is a force that it's progressive, but it's a group that's together going in the right direction. The trajectory is upward and forward always. So we want to thank you again. And if it's Monday and it's not a holiday, we'll be here to update you on where things are. And you can ask the questions. As you can see, we don't shy away from them. We want to be as transparent and accountable as we can be. So have a great day, and may God bless you and continue to bless Anguilla. And to all the women, happy Women's Week. Stay strong. Continue to break that glass ceiling.
Good day. Have you ever wondered why taxation matters? To appreciate Anguilla's journey to GST, we must first understand the importance of taxation. Taxation funds the delivery of essential public services and infrastructure to improve the lives and well-being of the residents of Anguilla. However, taxation is more than a source of revenue. It is a tool used to support national development by promoting equity, strengthening economic growth, and building public trust with transparent and efficiently administered tax systems. To achieve an improved and reliable tax system, the government of Anguilla took a phased approach for the introduction of a modern tax regime. The main phases are the implementation of an interim goods tax, IGT, on the 1st of October 2019. IGT will be repealed and replaced by GST on 1st July 2022. The passing of a Goods and Services Act on 29 July 2021, the GST registration period for businesses from April 2022, and the implementation of a GST tax system on 1st July 2022. GST brings many benefits for businesses and people in Anguilla. For example, people in Anguilla will benefit from modernization of Anguilla's economy, creation of a safety net, more resilience to economic shocks, and higher accountability from government and businesses. Additionally, GST-registered businesses will benefit from the recovery of GST paid on their purchases, easier maintenance and accounting records through an automated portal, and enhance marketplace credibility and reputation. The Inland Revenue Department is preparing for the commencement of a GST tax system through launching its website and taxpayers online portal, modernizing and digitizing its services to allow filing and payment online, training its staff, and conducting taxpayer education initiatives. What do businesses need to do to prepare? Prior to the GST implementation date, businesses must check whether they are required to be a GST registered business by 1st May 2022, ensure their accounting systems can administer GST, maintain accounting records, prepare point of sales to capture the GST calculation, and revise pricing to display prices inclusive of GST. Consumers, on the other hand, must, from 1st July 2022, be knowledgeable of zero-rated supplies and exemptions, know that only GST-registered taxpayers can charge them GST, familiarize themselves with the GST certificate, and review receipts and invoices. IRD looks forward to engaging with the people and businesses of Anguilla throughout this journey. This is the journey to GST, the journey to growing sustainably together.